And as you grow in the world, in space-time, there are characteristic patterns that you will move through. This is actually beige. Amber is blue. Amber are variations of Wilbur uses amber, Spiral Dynamics uses blue to represent the same stage. These are just color codes. It's not that important for you to understand. What's important is to understand that they move from epoch zero or archaic into magic, into mythic, and in the individual there's a power and then a mythic, into rational, into postmodern pluralism. These are stages of the evolution of consciousness, and we call this path growing up. And this is a revolutionary understanding that even the beginnings of it are less than a century old. And the reason that's important is because all of our meditative techniques and contemplative techniques are thousands of years old, and they knew nothing about this.
You said 100 years?
And really the nuances of it only in the last couple of decades have we started to really get clear about. So as humans grow, they grow through this stage sequence and may stop with their center of gravity anywhere in here. This same stage sequence unfolded in the culture over 100,000 years. Now this needs to be understood. 50,000 years ago, there were no modernist cultures. There were only archaic and magical cultures. This was the top of cultural evolution 50,000 years ago. And then a group of pioneers, a group of leading edge, a group of avant-garde start to unlock new capacities in their brain and start to open up space in their mind, start to take more perspectives, and a significant minority creates a new community that hits a tipping point and starts to spread until the amber, blue, or what we call mythic, literal, traditional cultures started to emerge about 10,000 years ago. And then the people born here, once this becomes a stable structure, a new culture, once the people born, although they're born here, have this center of gravity pulling them, they can grow all the way up into here where these people could not. Is everybody with me?
Yes.
And then this starts to go pathological after several thousand years. This mythic, literal, ethnocentric stage of development starts to go pathological, starts to come undone, results in the West in what we came to be known as the Dark Ages. And out of the Dark Ages, an avant-garde, a group of pioneers, the leading edge, started to unlock yet again higher capacities in their brain, started to take yet another perspective that was no longer just ethnocentric, which can only take the person of can take one other perspective, and that's someone that's like me. Can't even take the perspective of someone living in another country with a different religion and a different skin color. That's not even unlocked in them, which is why we also have to be very gentle with history. and our judgment of history. And once that next stage starts to get unlocked, defined by the Western Renaissance that spread into the Western Enlightenment, the modern world is born, the scientific revolution, rational, critical thinking that was not available to here. The world was made sense out of through the great myths, which we still see resonating through all of the world's wisdom traditions. Moses parted the Red Sea. It's Christian myth. A Hindu myth is that the world is held on the top of a turtle. It's held on the top of another turtle, another turtle, another turtle. That's a joke in philosophy. You know, well, what's that held on? Oh, it's turtles all the way down. Right? Turtles all the way down is a joke in philosophy. That's our, yeah. Because it's silly, right? It's like because there's not even a rational. But that's the argument you get if you're arguing with the mythic believer. But yeah, but what's that turtle held up on? Well, another turtle. But yeah, but what's that? Another turtle. Well, it's and then finally, well, it's just turtles all the way down, right? Because it's not, the rational structure hasn't emerged. It's like trying to convince a fundamental Christian that's locked into the rational structure that the earth wasn't created 6,000 years ago, which is one of the myths of the Old Testament.
Politics.
And so if you try to convince a fundamental Christian, in the same way if you tried to convince a fundamental Hindu how the world can't really be held up on turtles, and it can't be turtles all the way down, if you try to convince a fundamental Christian of why the earth wasn't born in 6,000 years, you can't do it rationally because they're not using the rational structure, because the rational structure isn't fully emergent in them. And you will end up, when they say things, yeah, but we have fossil record dating back before 6,000 years, and they go, well, God created the fossil record just to test your belief. I mean, seriously, it's illogic, right? You're not going to get there through rational discourse or debate, which is why we have to be gentle with history. And so that rational world-centric stage, then when it goes pathological, which is happening, because right now our Western world and most of the world is made up of a combination of this mythic, literal, ethnocentric belief system, this modernist, scientific, rational, world-centric stage, and this now postmodern, pluralistic, multicultural, universalistic stage. And it's these three stages. And so here's the thing to remember. All of this occurred over 100,000 years of evolution. But once this next stage gets established, once the Western Enlightenment was birthed and this became a new culture, then when a child is born at square one, there's an attractor. They can grow all the way to here where they couldn't and they couldn't. You understand this?
Yes. Yeah.
And the highest attractor right now is that postmodern pluralism. So when you're born here, by the time we're 25 years old, we have the opportunity to grow to here. That's about what it takes if all things line up perfectly. And they rarely do. I mean everything. Yes. And the pathologies and the culture that they're in and the individual housing they're in and how much abuse they had and where they went to school, and all of that has an impact. The socioeconomic system that surrounds them, the political system that surrounds them, the people in their lower left, the environments in their lower right, the nutrition that they have that develops enough fatty acids in their brain for growth, all of that is part of the picture. And if everything lines up right, by the time you're 25, you can grow into this. And that's been the leading edge of our culture since the 1960s. That's when it became a stable structure in the world. And these stages we call growing up, because when we're born here in space and time, This is a developmental unfolding. These are rungs of a ladder that we get to step up on, step up on, step up on, step up on, step up on. And that's growing up. Or we can become arrested right here, and it happens, and we can remain ethnocentric. Or we could get arrested here or here and not get to here. And the culture wars are a war between the three major memes or stages of evolution, which are all operating. This makes up about 95% of Western culture. And these three stages all hate each other. You source traditional value. Don't shout out. Just stay with me. Let's raise our hands when we do this. Just let me stay in a flow of this. So we have traditional values that are sourced from here, modernist values that are sourced from here, and postmodern values that are sourced from here. These are the culture wars. Traditional versus modern, modern versus postmodern, postmodern versus... They all hate each other. Postmodern, which claims to be so inclusive, has no room for this. It is anything but inclusive right now. In fact, it is one of the most polarizing, exclusive stages of development we've ever seen right now in its pathological form. Because it isn't until early Epoch 6 that we can see out of this narrow bandwidth of our own hidden meaning-making map. This is what we're looking through at these stages. When we move into Epoch 6, we're looking through this. And not until. And all the wicked problems of the world are going to be solved when we move into here and can look through this. And so this is growing up. And this is what we're trying to catalyze in Tier 1, 2, 3 of higher brain living. We want to move a lot of people out of here into here. That's the project.